For those people on planet Earth that allow their dogs to lick their faces, just a heads up, just an FYI, they also use that same exact tongue to lick their own ball sack. Again, just letting you know, I'm not judging you. If you like dog ball sweat on your face, I mean, maybe that's just a part of your normal routine. I don't judge. They also use that exact same nose to go around sniffing other dogs' butts. Again, no judgment, just kind of like a friendly reminder. Anyways, all jokes aside, in today's video, we're getting pretty serious. Okay, well, not serious because, action figures, how serious can you get? But I'm going to address this whole Maximum Spider-Man Marvel Legends action figure situation one more time. I'm not going to go out on a limb and promise that this will be the last time that I reference it, because it is basically the hottest topic of conversation right now. But I'm going to try to make this my last video. And essentially what I wanted to do today was go through some eBay listings and just kind of like get a feeling for what it is that's really happening, because we consistently hear about thousands of collectors that were supposedly not going to buy this action figure, that were so offended by the $50 price point, and yet the figure has completely sold out by, I think, like most major trustworthy retailers. I mentioned this in the previous video because I have covered this on like 3 different occasions, but I do believe that there are some of these like weird obscure websites that may still have these available. I would probably steer clear of those. I would just go with like the mainline retailers just to be safe. But they, like I said, most of these have already sold out, and they're pretty difficult to find. So I think most of your avenues are going to be buying from people that are trying to flip this action figure. And I've already mentioned how I personally do not believe it's just some randos trying to buy figures and flip them. I think these are legitimate businesses. These are like eBay stores or Amazon stores that have like all their paperwork in order and actually buy in bulk directly from Hasbro, or indirectly, but they're able to buy it for pretty discounted prices. And I think that kind of cuts into what would usually go into a regular retail setting. So a lot of these figures were going to be sold, like mass produced and just sold, one item at a time or 2 at a time. But because Hasbro probably didn't want the responsibility of it, a lot of these eBay stores were probably able to nab up quite a few for, well under retail, and now they're trying to flip these. I already mentioned that most people that bought these at $50 and are now trying to resell them on eBay, there's probably like absolutely no profit margin. From what I can see through eBay, with shipping and eBay fees and everything included, I know the price point is as low as like $80 or a little bit over $80, but you have to account for taxes. Wherever it is that you live, you're still gonna have to pay for that. You're probably paying closer to about $90 for this collectible, or at least high 80s. In most cases, you're paying about like 95 even before you get hit with taxes. So I would probably say it's a safe bet to assume that you're going to pay anywhere from like 87 to about $100. And I should clarify, none of these are in stock. All of these are available through pre-orders on eBay, and I'm not sure how eBay handles that particular situation, but I've heard that there's a time frame, there's a window where you have to ship the item if somebody pre-ordered through you. So I'm not sure exactly how eBay is going to handle that situation, because the actual release date I think is like 5 months, well, closer to about like 3 months away, and so it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to hold on to pre-orders like that. I think that's against eBay regulations, but I couldn't be 100% sure. That's just what I remember. I do sell like lots of collectibles from time to time, stuff that I'm not interested in, and I think that's, again, I remember reading something about that in the guidelines. But regardless, you're going to be looking to pay about that much for this Marvel Legends Spider-Man. And as I've been saying now for years, I think that goes hand in hand with people trying to flip these action figures, or people just being dishonest with their own community. Because I do feel like, even though I've already extensively talked about it, I do believe a lot of these eBay sellers are able to get deals behind closed doors or under the table for like pallets worth of these figures, and that's how they're able to make their profit. Because if you try to do the math on there, $50 plus shipping and taxes, they're paying close to about $60, and they're trying to flip it online for $80. They still have to pay for eBay fees as well as shipping, so it makes no sense in my mind. There's absolutely no profit to be made. So anybody that's assuming that these people are buying these at retail and trying to resell them, that's buffoonery. I don't know who's coming up with these type of theories, but that makes absolutely no sense if you actually sit down and do the math. But that, coupled with the fact that so many people lied about not actually picking this figure up, like I genuinely feel like a lot of people that were posting or spamming with comments, banging their fists on their tables, stating that they were not going to purchase this figure, I think a lot of people actually did, because there's no way that this figure sold out this quickly. And I know there are a lot of people out there speculating or coming up with, random theories about how Hasbro decided to only release a few to make it seem like there was a huge demand for this figure. I honestly don't believe that. As I said, I think it's because a lot of these smaller little retailers or a lot of these smaller little online stores were able to purchase so many of these. I think that's why Hasbro was able to kind of take a back seat and just kind of kick their feet up and watch all of their figures sold out, because they kind of cleaned their hands of this entire situation. They sold to these, small little online e-stores, and then, whatever it is that they were able to sell through their Hasbro Pulse website, and that was good enough for them, right? I mean, their profit margins are clearly very good for this figure, and so they're not looking to move as many, because that $50 price point obviously pays for itself. And look, I've said this before and I'll say it again, in terms of my personal opinion on the figure, I think it's a genuinely creative step in the right direction, but I still feel like this figure is overpriced. Like, I wouldn't pay that $50 price point. I think most people that did just really wanted the end-all Spider-Man, which in my personal opinion it is. I think this will be the standard for Spider-Man Marvel Legends moving forward. But ultimately, I think that's the biggest problem with the community. The fact that people think that there's an actual community, and I think we referred to the phrase as community as just people that buy collectibles, but there's no unity there. I mean, so many people came out and said, we're not going to buy these, we're going to boycott Hasbro, we're going to join arms and just stick it to the machine. We're going to show them that we can actually be together and stand against predatory practices from manufacturers. And that didn't happen at all. There were some people that stuck to their guns, very few people, but most people that wanted this Spider-Man Marvel Legends action figure just went out of their way to purchase it. I mentioned this briefly in a previous video, but it kind of reminds me of that whole NBA starting lineup wave that Hasbro did a few years ago, where they essentially did the exact same thing. They actually released those original figures for a grand total of $50. You guessed it. You had Joel Embiid, you had Tatum, you had LeBron James, Steph Curry, Trae Young, you had all Luka Doncic, you had all of the main superstars at the moment, and they were all being offered for $50. They came with a few extra accessories and things of that nature. I think they came in that windowless packaging, and I think the entire community kind of rose up and stood against Hasbro, and they were actually able to drop the price. I think within a few months or a few weeks after the release, they ended up dropping the price all the way down to $35, which was a huge success, a huge W for the community. They stuck it to Hasbro, and they were able to get a better price. But I think it's a little bit of a different scenario. Obviously, with the NBA starting lineup, you have to realize that they are appealing to a much smaller fan base. They're only manufacturing action figures for people that are into NBA or into sports, and also action figure collectors. So the group of people that they were gearing this particular line towards was just incredibly small. So I think it was easier for them to kind of just hold out and wait for the price to drop. Whereas in this, we're talking about a comic book based character, not only a comic book based character, but the most important and potentially one of the most recognized comic book characters of all time. And so it only made sense that this figure would sell out. I just think it was kind of interesting, as I said in my previous video, that people were being a little bit hypocritical. Everybody said they weren't going to buy it, and then the figure proceeds to sell out, which I've said before, I don't think that has anything to do with Hasbro making stock or making inventory difficult to find. I don't think so personally. I just feel like a lot of people panicked last second and picked up multiples. And to be brutally honest with you guys, I do tend to ramble and rant on for way longer than I need to, so I'll get straight to it. I just honestly feel like this is setting a really bad standard for the future. The fact that this particular figure sold out that quickly at that $50 price point, I think it's sending a really bad message to Hasbro that people are willing to pay that much. And whether the price point is adequate or not, I think it was very important to give just a little bit of pushback, and unfortunately, nobody really did that. Everybody just caved in, purchased the action figure. As I said, the starting lineup NBA line from Hasbro is a perfect example. People were willing to, wait it out, even if it meant that there was the potential that they missed out on some of these figures. But they essentially stood their ground and let it be known that they weren't going to be pushed around when it came down to price points for regular retail action figures. And look, I've always loved the idea of Hasbro doing deluxe waves or deluxe action figures, but I'm really scared that they're going to start to blur the line too much. They're going to offer, basic style action figures for a quote unquote deluxe price point. I've always loved the idea of Hasbro, doing more of this, where they give you an action figure with a ton of accessories, even if it means that they hike up the price just a little bit. But in my personal, humble opinion, I think they might have overstepped their reach here, and I definitely feel like $50 is quite a bit to pay. And let's just assume that this maximum Marvel Legends line continues into the future. What happens if it's a character that utilizes a bigger or a wider body mold? Does that mean they're going to hike up the price even further? Are they going to go to the $55 price point, even to the $60 price point? I feel like, look, at this point, we're used to Marvel Legends being a particular price point, and I'm starting to realize that maybe Hasbro should just stay within those boundaries. Maybe they weren't meant to reach that audience that is willing to pay $50 to $60 for action figures. Maybe they just need to stay within their own group of collectors and continue feeding that fan base rather than trying to expand and reach, newer collectors. I mentioned this briefly with McFarlane because I felt like he was doing something very similar, where he was trying to make collectibles that appealed to a much wider audience rather than actually giving his hardcore fan base action figures to collect. And we saw this where he's hurting the DC Multiverse in the collector's edition line for the sake of doing like his Todd mods or some of the Marvel statues or the Page Punchers line. I think something similar is happening with Hasbro, where they're not just focusing in on the people that have supported them for years, that have been there with them, that have purchased some of the action figures that maybe don't even deserve to be purchased at that $25 price point. But we've been loyal fans and loyal supporters, and I don't think this is the correct way to treat them. I personally feel like they overpriced the figure by quite a bit, and hopefully they rectify this in the foreseeable future. But just from the fact that people were willing to purchase this figure outright, they didn't even wait that long for the figure to sit on like metaphorical store shelves. I think it's sending a really bad message to Hasbro that collectors are willing to pay whatever it takes to have an action figure or a character in hand that they maybe grew up with or absolutely love or are obsessed with. And this is just a really bad road to go down. That's just my personal opinion, my personal humble take on this entire situation. Now, there have been some people that have wanted me to kind of talk about the whole Shartimus Prime situation and how a lot of people feel like he's just bashing on his own community. And I think I'll probably do a video about that at a later time, just because I want to actually, watch multiple different videos, because he does address another video from Articulated Ninja. And so what I probably do is watch both, videos and like really analyze them and just give you guys my overall take. Because like I said, there have been a couple of people that have asked me about it and whether I'm going to cover it. And I do plan on talking about it because I do feel like it's worth kind of analyzing and looking at things from different angles and different perspectives, because everybody has different opinions. And so I probably will kind of break that down and just kind of like dissect the beef that's going on, because I have actually covered McFarlane or Shartimus Prime, in the past, when he's interviewed McFarlane, and how sometimes things get to be a little bit heated in those interviews. And so I don't shy away from talking about Shartimus if I need to, or defending the guy if I need to. Now, in this particular case, we'll see how things play out. I'm going to watch the videos, kind of, let it dissect, let it simmer, and then I'll probably give you guys a video later in the week. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for, just being around. If you guys enjoy this content, make sure to stay tuned. Make sure to, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you guys want to join the membership, there's always that opportunity as well, just to continue to help out the channel and help improve the setup and everything here. But as I said, just being around, just, commenting, hitting the like button, all of that stuff really helps the channel. So I really do appreciate every single one of you guys that tunes it in. So there you guys have it. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you believe that this is a really bad situation? Do you feel like the collector community kind of is drowning themselves when it comes down to this figure, or do you think it's a good thing that you continue to support Hasbro even through these dark times? Very curious to see what you guys have to say. How much do you feel comfortable with paying for an action figure like this? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and as always, make sure to enjoy the hobby. That's the most important part of all this. Pose your action figures, photograph them, play with them, pose them, do whatever it is that you do to enjoy action figures, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one.